This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now.
Had to change up this video a little bit, and we can discuss this further in a live stream potentially later today. But I said I had almost finished a video Sunday night when I had no clue Brian was actually doing what I would be talking about in my video. So I am still keeping some of the images. I'm just adding a lot more information. So, I think it's helpful for people to fully understand what's going on and what's happening from here on out in this appeal, really. So what we know is Brian did indeed on Monday morning file a PCR, post-conviction relief petition, and what he's asking the court, Hippler basically, to do is to withdraw his guilty plea, vacate his convictions, and he clearly stated he would like a new trial and that justice has obviously not been served and that he's innocent. He also, and we'll talk about this later, but he also requested appointed post-conviction counsel. So basically an Ann Taylor of sorts, but I have an issue with this. I think that Brian needs someone, either money raised to pay that somebody that's able to practice law in Idaho, or do it pro bono, because I don't think Brian should trust Idaho for nothing anymore. And I probably would guess y'all don't think he should either. So what happens from now is that counsel reviews and may amend the petition if counsel is appointed. And right now he did mark that he wanted counsel, but for now he's working on his case himself. And so if counsel is appointed, then they will investigate further and they may file an amended petition adding any legal claims if it's supported by whatever evidence Brian has to assist with his case. So they would discuss with Brian why he wants to do a post-conviction relief. And so then they would amend his already filed PCR. Okay. And so possible claims, as we know, he is claiming at the moment ineffective assistance of counsel. And currently Brian is basically claiming, he mentioned some things, but he's kind of saying he was coerced. And he also did state that his family was present via Zoom. I don't know if it said that, but obviously they don't live in Idaho. But he said they were present during these meetings with his counsel that were discussing the plea deal. So they're witnesses to corroborate what he's saying about his counsel. I find that interesting, but y'all know me. I find a lot of this interesting, and I do believe this is all very strategic. And I'm not trying to say anything that makes people think Ann Taylor or her team should be in trouble, but I will just leave it that I think that this is all strategic on all parts of anyone on the side of Brian Kohberger. I do believe his mental health at the time of signing that plea agreement could be a big deal. And if you look at his signature when he signed the plea documents, it's really shaky. He has really bad handwriting, but it is even worse like on those documents. So it's just really sad to me. And I think that he's a smart individual, and he knew, as he claims to be an innocent person, he was still signing documents to save his life, but he also was signing documents to put him away for the rest of his life 4 times over, and then 10 years for a burglary charge. Who wouldn't be shaking and signing? And I think it's so rude of Steve G to criticize this man's handwriting when he's clearly smarter than Steve G will ever be. Okay? Sorry. But I'm over that. I'm over the BS remarks and hate when I think the energy spent doing all this, again, here we go. Steve G's out everywhere. Of course. Where are the rest of the families in this case? Oh, only Steve and Olivia so far. Everywhere. Right? And it'll continue. So, that's just my opinion. And I'm allowed to have my opinion. So, moving on. It doesn't make sense to me. Now I lost my train of thought. Anyways, back to possible claims. He can claim, like he did, he's actually factually innocent. And I think on paper, from what we've all been seeing, we've seen that the documents do not provide evidence to put Brian Kohberger away for the crimes. It just doesn't. And anyone like Steve G, all these people, mainstream media, anyone who says the words overwhelming amount of evidence, they're on another planet, okay? Because they have not read the documents or they just don't have a brain, okay? Sorry, not sorry. Also, what else he can claim, and we don't know, he can, like I said, if he gets an attorney, they are going to amend this document, and it's going to likely say his due process was violated, and there are 6th Amendment violations, and we still don't know who the Brady violation was against in the time frame of this case in Moscow. And I do know that something about Bill Thompson, but really Brady is if any exculpatory evidence was withheld. He is saying in his own writing there was exculpatory evidence withheld. He just was. And so my opinion is, let's go back to the beginning when we were told Bethany Funke had exculpatory evidence, and we don't know what that was, do we? We now know he's aware of the clump of hair in Ethan's hand that was kind of downplayed by people. I believe Turvey was the one who really was concerned about that, and I think Turvey, I'm telling you, I'm not going to say too much because I don't want people to get any wrong ideas when I don't know these people, and it's just solely my opinion. But again, I will just say things in my personal opinion regarding all of this now is it's strategic, and you can figure out on your own what that might mean, okay? So basically, this is going to lead to manifest injustice and arguing that this conviction or these convictions should be overturned, not stand. And this can take, I don't think this is going to take long, which is a good thing, because I think that these people just want to get this over with, everybody involved. So once this happens, with or without, Brian's going to do whatever he does, or he's going to get counsel, and they're going to likely amend his petition. Then the state will get to have their chance to respond. And so the prosecutors then, file their response, and they either dismiss the petition or proceed to a hearing. And then that would be good. I mean, I think Hippler needs to give this a chance because he was so biased to begin with, and the world now knows that. And if you don't know it, then go back and watch every court hearing that was had that we were able to watch. So then the court may allow certain limited discovery. Attorneys can obtain records, new attorneys I'm really referring to. They can interview witnesses, review all the evidence, and consult experts. Here's my question. Brian had a whole team of experts, and now they've all, not all of them, but quite important individuals that were experts have all come out and spoken. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Brian's sake. And like Ann Taylor said about Turvey, I would expect her to come out and say that Cy Ray also had signed a non-disclosure agreement, because he's now changing his whole tune as to what he wrote in his own report for the defense as an expert. He's now stating Brian Kohberger was at the house, or in the house, or the phone was in the house. And he's saying it on national television. So this is a problem to me. So Ann Taylor better be coming out with a statement today, ASAP, in my opinion. So moving on, the discovery and investigation, if the court allows, this is where all the allegations would be brought to light. And like exculpatory evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, any new evidence. And I would hope, if I'm right about anything, that new evidence could be Brian was related to whoever's DNA by distant cousinhood on that sheath, and that it was not Brian's. That's my hope. Or they can also talk about and bring to light constitutional violations. And if there's legal basis, then that's all able to be investigated, right? So it's not automatic that this next step would come, but there would then, if the judge finds that there's factual disputes that need to be resolved, then the judge would say, okay, we're going to have an evidentiary hearing. Then that would be scheduled. And that's when Anne and her defense team, they'd also be called to explain their actions, because he's claiming ineffective assistance of counsel. And don't get it twisted, because most people that get convicted go to prison. They all typically file post-conviction relief, because even if they're guilty and it's clear as day, they're in prison and they don't want to be. This is totally different. So who knows what Anne and the whole team would have to say about what the claims being made are, like what is this all about? And, we would actually get a little bit of transparency, because at least towards whatever happened pre-trial, like the proceedings that we saw, but we all were like, what the heck, and didn't really have any transparency. And it kind of removes a little bit of attorney-client privilege, really, in a sense anyways. So they would have to do that. And then expert witnesses, investigators, sometimes prosecutors, and any other relevant witnesses that would explain why this post-conviction relief was filed, right? And that's where my question lies. The expert witnesses. So does he now have to go find all new expert witnesses, because half of his witnesses have now come out and talked to YouTubers, told their side of things? There's books written. Now there's the Netflix thing coming out this week. I mean, I already can say I believe wholeheartedly, even if we have an evidentiary hearing, we know Hippler. Hippler is Hitler, not Hippler. You get it. I'm saying T, not PP, because that's how this man acts. And he is, in my opinion, not honorable, period, at all, whatsoever. We all witnessed it for way too long. He was clearly biased. So the judge will decide if violations occurred, right? Then he makes his decision, and he may vacate the guilty plea, order a new trial, and then there we go, back to court. The judge also can deny it, which is my opinion, he will. And the convictions, Brian will stay exactly where he's at. And sadly, well, hopefully because of this case, I think, like I said earlier, that this will happen pretty quickly. My prayer is that it does. Then, if he denies Brian's post-conviction relief, Brian will then appeal through Idaho's appellate process with the state of Idaho Supreme Court. The appeal proceeds through the appellate system in Idaho, with review ultimately available from, like I just said, Supreme Court. So then they review everything that just occurred, everything that they have to get their little grimy hands on, because I don't think this is going to work either, not for Brian, but that's okay. They decide if the district court correctly applied the law and if there were legal errors that require a reversal. I don't think, being Idaho, I'm not going to have high hopes for this, but that's okay, because then we get the hell out of Idaho, right? That's what I would want if I was Brian. Then Brian files a federal habeas corpus, and that's when you've exhausted all your choices and you want to get the hell out of Dodge, Idaho. So then he files this in the appropriate U.S. District Court, federal court, where I've said from day one, and don't y'all forget it, where would Brian get exonerated that he was looking forward to be exonerated from? The federal Supreme Court. You know, just saying. You heard it here first. Many moons ago, almost 4, okay? So, a federal court reviews whether the conviction violated the U.S. Constitution. It's not a new trial and generally does not outweigh. It doesn't reweigh the evidence. It's just looking at constitutional violations. And it is not a new trial. I think I said that already. Anyways. So if the federal district court denies relief, then he can appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. This is like such a long process. It's kind of sad, and it's honestly just depressing in a way, but we got to just stay positive and hope that the truth prevails one way or another. So the final step after all that's exhausted is asking the Supreme Court of the United States to please hear the case. Which they pick and choose which cases to review. So that's a little scary. We would all have to really petition, and we would have to write to our legislatures and make noise about this. Because at the end of the day, guilty or not, we, the people, deserve answers to the case we've all worked so very hard to find answers to get transparency, to get the truth. And if the truth is that Brian Kohberger is innocent, then who did this and why are they walking free today? That's the problem. So it's sad because the U.S. Supreme Court typically reviews significant federal or constitutional legal questions rather than deciding factual innocence. So that's where it comes into play that people need to make noise, not about how he's innocent, but about what went wrong, what we the people know to be legally wrong, corrupt, things that the law follows, not what our hearts say, not our emotions, not we don't like the frat boys. That's not what that would be for at all. So it's crazy because PCR proceedings can take 1 to 3 years depending on how complex it is, which scares me. State appeals can take 1 to 2 years, and a federal habeas review can take several more years. The entire process is just like I've told many of you in knowing and assisting someone to finally get picked up with the Innocence Project, that it is not easy when you get locked up in prison and it's like the key's thrown away, even if you're innocent as innocent could be. I mean, 5 to 10 years. That's scary. But that's why we have to be really cognizant of how we all do this. If we're going to fight for truth and justice, we got to learn some things together, right? And I think it's really pointless to bicker with other people if we don't agree. Keep it moving, because if we really care about justice and if we care and we truly believe Brian's innocent, we need to focus on what the law says and how we can prove what the law says and what did or did not happen in what we've already witnessed and what we've read in the documents. So I just have to really make this note too, because people need to understand that post-conviction petition is not evidence that constitutional violations ever occurred. However, we're pretty sure we know that they did, right? I mean, if we know, we know. We know. And so, especially, here was what I want to say though, because especially claims such as ineffective assistance of counsel, like we all witnessed what we believed to be Ann Taylor really fighting for her client, right? So we cannot just assume, take plea deals and they stand up. Not many people stand up like Brian did 4 times over, but there was a reason for that, okay? And so we have to keep in mind that even the Brady violations, prosecutorial misconduct, that has to be supported by evidence from here on out. So we don't, and I'm going to tell y'all, Linda Lane, the things we do or don't see, that's not evidence, okay? So I hate to break it to you, but, and I did this a long time ago too, but Linda Lane is not a factor in this. Nobody's going to go to any of these people, any of these judges, not even Hippler, and say, hey, but look, you see people, or you see this. You see a face. No, that's not evidence, okay? So I just want people to really know what time well spent, what we hear on audio, that's not going to fly either. Maybe if the FBI is analyzing it or someone who is an expert, but I that's not what we're talking about here. We're way past that at this point. It's legal things that were not handled to give Brian his due process, which we are all, by law, supposed to be given as Americans. So, this is just simply judicial review, and all we can do is really pray that Brian gets a bomb attorney, like the best of best, that will do this pro bono, unless it's true that he has $40K up in his money, whatever it's called. I can't think of the word. I should be able to think of the word. Anyways, I'm talking too much. That's why I can't think of words anymore. So, that's the deal. So, I had to edit this video a little. We can go live. We can discuss some of these things. I do know some of this process pretty well, but I wanted to make sure everyone also has a decent understanding of, like, what's coming next. And, we can also, I guess, speculating here, my opinion, but we can expect that the media is going to continue to act like Ashley Banfield does daily and make ridiculous remarks when she's never read a document, and the rest of them are going to follow suit. Megyn Kelly, and I just think that it's really absurd if they ever wanted, I mean, how do you say someone else is guilty? But hey, they think that Tyler Robinson did what is claimed he allegedly did to Charlie Kirk. So that's their brains. And I think we're all a little bit smarter than that. But hey, what do I know? Anyways, I hope that helped you guys. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. And I added some things in here, but I'm just going to let the video play and you guys will see whatever I added that was kind of thrown in. I think there's a part about the GFAM and statements. Maybe that might be a different video. Whatever I am putting in here, though, I'm trying to make it just pertain to this right now. So maybe I won't do that. I'll save that for another video. But I did have the documents Brian did, his words. I at least added that. So, all right, you guys. Well, I don't know about you, but I slept really good on Monday night when we all saw, well, Sunday actually, I can't remember, but when we knew that he did this and it's for real, I'm so happy, especially for his family. And I really hope that we get answers to why people like Cy all of them, Cy Turvey, the other guy that wrote the book, Broken Plea, which I find it very, very, that's Brian having a brain that some don't, because he used the words broken plea in his own words to Mike Baker, the guy with the New York Times. So he's a smart cookie and he uses really big words. So anyone who wants to say, look at his writing, he's like a child, blah, blah, blah. How did he get into a doctoral program? Please, someone inform me, enlighten me with that answer, please. Anyways, love y'all. I will talk to you soon. Stay safe.